Many people believe peace is something they will reach one day, after they earn enough money, after they fix their situation, after life finally becomes easier. But the Stoics saw this as the greatest illusion. If peace depends on external things, then peace is always temporary. Money can disappear, status can fade, relationships can change without warning. A calm mind built on unstable ground will never last. Stoicism teaches a different idea. True peace does not come from what you have, but from how little you depend on it. The world outside you is constantly moving. It is unpredictable, indifferent, and uncontrollable. Trying to extract peace from it is like trying to hold water in your hands. In this video, we will explore why nothing external, not success, not comfort, not approval, can give lasting peace. And more importantly, how you can build a calm, steady mind that remains intact, even when everything around you changes. This is not about rejecting the world. It is about no longer being ruled by it. Stay here, let go of expectations, and begin understanding where peace truly comes from. From a young age, we are taught to look outward for peace. We are told that calm will arrive once life improves, once problems disappear, once circumstances finally align. But this way of thinking quietly trains the mind to postpone peace. It creates a habit of waiting, and a life spent waiting is a life never fully lived. The Stoics understood something most people overlook: anything that can be taken away was never a reliable source of peace to begin with. External things are unstable by nature. They rise and fall without asking for permission. To attach your inner calm to them is to hand control of your mind to forces you do not command. This does not mean success is bad or comfort is wrong. It means they are not foundations. Peace that depends on outcomes will collapse the moment outcomes change. A Stoic does not reject the external world. He simply refuses to build his inner life on it. The moment you stop expecting the outside world to provide emotional stability, you take the first step toward real freedom. Peace begins when dependence ends. Desire is often mistaken for motivation, but uncontrolled desire quietly erodes peace. When the mind constantly reaches for more, it can never rest where it is. Even success becomes unsatisfying, because it only sharpens the hunger for the next thing. The Stoics notice that desire ties your emotional state to events outside your control. You feel calm only if life cooperates. You feel anxious the moment it does not. This creates a fragile inner world. One disappointment is enough to disturb it. One delay is enough to shake it. Desire itself is not the enemy. Attachment is. Wanting something while believing you need it to be at peace turns the mind into a servant of circumstance. The Stoic approach is different. Act without clinging. Work without demanding results. Care without surrendering your balance. When desire loosens its grip, the mind stops racing ahead of reality. And in that stillness, peace becomes possible. Not because life is perfect, but because the mind is no longer chasing it. One of the most important distinctions in Stoicism is the line between what you control and what you do not. You control your judgments, your intentions, your actions. You do not control outcomes, other people, the pace of life. Most anxiety comes from confusing these two. When you try to control what is not yours to command, the mind tightens. It resists. It exhausts itself. The Stoics trained themselves to release this struggle. They placed their energy only where it could be effective. If an outcome is uncertain, accept it. If an action is yours to take it fully. Peace does not require certainty. It requires clarity. The moment you stop demanding guarantees from life, you gain room to breathe. You are not responsible for how the world responds to you. You are responsible for how you respond to the world. That responsibility, when accepted calmly, becomes a source of strength rather than pressure. This is not surrender. It is precision. Many people believe comfort will protect them. They build their lives around avoiding discomfort, thinking peace comes from staying untouched by difficulty. But comfort weakens the mind. The Stoics observe that a life without challenge does not create calm, it creates fragility. When the mind becomes accustomed only to ease, even small disruptions feel unbearable. Minor inconveniences turn into major disturbances. Peace built on comfort collapses the moment comfort disappears. This is why the Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort, not to suffer unnecessarily, but to remember their resilience. Cold, hunger, silence, simplicity. These experiences were reminders, not punishments. They taught the mind, I can endure. True peace is not the absence of difficulty. It is confidence in your ability to face it. When you no longer fear discomfort, the world loses its power to threaten your calm. And in that quiet strength, peace no longer depends on conditions. Events themselves are neutral. They do not arrive with meaning attached. Meaning is something the mind adds afterward. The Stoics understood that perception, not circumstance, is what shapes inner peace. Two people can face the same situation. One remains calm, The other collapses inward. The difference is not strength, it is interpretation. When the mind labels an event as unbearable, it becomes so. When it labels it as manageable, the weight changes immediately. Stoicism trains awareness of this process, teaches you to pause between event and reaction. In that pause, you gain choice. You can decide not to exaggerate, not to dramatize, not to assume the worst. This is not denial, it is restraint. By correcting perception, you remove unnecessary suffering. Peace grows not by controlling life, but by refining how life is understood. When perception steadies, the mind follows. Many people search for peace through approval. They want to be seen, understood, validated. At first, approval feels calming, but it never lasts. The Stoics recognized approval as one of the most unstable foundations for peace. It depends entirely on others, their moods, values, and attention. When your peace relies on being liked, your behavior becomes reactive. You adjust yourself to fit expectations. You trade honesty for acceptance. This creates inner tension. A quiet fear of disapproval follows every action. Approval can disappear instantly. A single misunderstanding, a change in opinion, a moment of silence. The Stoic chooses a different anchor. Instead of asking, "How am I seen?" he asks, "Am I acting with integrity?" When your standard comes from within, external judgment loses its grip. You no longer need applause to feel steady. You no longer fear rejection as a threat. Peace arrives when self-respect replaces approval-seeking. And with that shift, the mind finally rests on solid ground. Attachment disguises itself as care, but in reality, it often creates fear. When you attach your peace to something external, you begin guarding it mentally. You worry about losing it. You rehearse future pain before it arrives. The Stoics saw attachment as a silent contract. I will remain calm only if this stays unchanged. Life does not honor that contract. People change, possessions break, situations end. Attachment turns natural change into suffering. Detachment, in Stoicism, is not indifference. It is clarity. You can appreciate what you have without chaining your inner stability to it. Enjoy success, without fearing its loss. Care for people, without demanding permanence. When attachment loosens, the mind stops bracing against the future. Peace returns, not because nothing can be lost, but because loss no longer destroys your balance. This is emotional independence, and it is one of Stoicism's greatest strengths. Expectations often feel harmless. They appear reasonable, even hopeful, but expectations quietly negotiate with reality. They assume the world will behave according to your plans. The Stoics warned against this habit, not because planning is wrong, but because demanding specific outcomes creates unnecessary disappointment. When expectations are rigid, every deviation feels like failure. A delay becomes an insult. A change becomes a loss. Reality rarely follows scripts. Stoicism teaches flexible intention. Prepare carefully, act with purpose, then release the outcome. This mindset allows effort without emotional debt. You give your best without demanding a reward. Disappointment weakens when expectation loosens. Instead of asking, "Why didn't this happen?" the Stoic asks, "What is required now?" This shift keeps the mind present. It prevents rumination. It protects peace. When expectations soften, life stops feeling like a series of letdowns and starts feeling like a process you can navigate calmly. Many people measure their worth by outcomes. Success means they are enough. Failure means they are not. The Stoics rejected this idea completely. Outcomes are influenced by countless variables: timing, chance, other people, conditions beyond your reach. To let them define you is to give away authority over your identity. A Stoic judges himself differently, not by results, but by effort guided by reason. Did you act honestly? Did you act with discipline? Did you act with clarity? If the answer is yes, the outcome becomes secondary. This does not remove ambition. It removes desperation. When outcomes lose the power to define you, fear loosens its grip. You act more freely. You recover faster. Peace grows. When self-worth is no longer negotiated with circumstances, you remain steady whether things go well or fall apart. And that steadiness is something the external world cannot touch. Acceptance is often misunderstood as weakness, as if accepting reality means approving of it. The Stoics meant something very different. Acceptance is the refusal to waste energy fighting what already exists. When the mind resists reality, it multiplies pain. It argues with facts. It demands an alternate version of the present moment. Reality does not respond. Stoic acceptance begins with clarity. This is what is happening now. From that clarity, action becomes possible. Without it, the mind remains stuck complaining instead of responding. Acceptance does not prevent improvement. It enables it. You cannot improve what you refuse to see clearly. You cannot move forward while mentally standing somewhere else. When acceptance replaces resistance, tension dissolves. The mind stops bracing itself. Peace enters. Not because the situation is ideal, but because the inner conflict has ended. This is quiet strength, the ability to stand firmly inside the truth of the moment without collapse. The mind often abandons the present. It drifts into regret or anticipation, searching for peace somewhere else. The Stoics saw this as a mistake. Peace cannot exist outside the present moment. The past is memory. The future is imagination. Only the present is real. When you demand peace from the future, you postpone calm indefinitely. When you fight the past, you relive what cannot be changed. Stoicism anchors attention here, not as an escape, but as a discipline. The present moment is always manageable. It is the stories layered on top of it that feel overwhelming. When attention returns to what is actually happening, the mind stabilizes. Breathing, standing, listening. Nothing more is required. Peace does not arrive later. It appears the moment the mind stops leaving the present behind. This is not passivity. It is precision. And from this precision, clarity naturally follows. Fear survives on imagination. It projects futures that have not arrived, and reacts to them as if they already have. The Stoics understood this pattern clearly. They noticed that most fear is not caused by events, but by mental rehearsal. When the mind repeatedly asks, "What if?" it leaves the present and enters a world it cannot verify. Stoicism interrupts this cycle. Instead of arguing with fear, it brings attention back to what is certain. What is happening now? What is required now? Fear weakens when it is forced into the present. It cannot survive long there. This does not mean ignoring risk. It means refusing to suffer in advance. Preparation is reasonable. Panic is optional. When fear no longer dictates behavior, clarity returns. Decisions improve. Energy stabilizes. Peace grows when the mind stops reacting to imagined futures and remains grounded in what is actually within reach. Not every thought deserves your attention, yet most people treat every thought as if it carries urgency and truth. The Stoics warned against this habit. The mind produces thoughts constantly, many of them repetitive, exaggerated, or useless. When you follow all of them, the mind becomes crowded and restless. Peace fades under mental noise. Stoicism teaches discernment. You are not required to react to every impulse, memory, or worry. A thought can appear without being obeyed. When you stop feeding unnecessary thoughts, they lose strength. They pass more quickly. They disturb less deeply. This creates space, silence, clarity. The external world does not need to change for the mind to feel lighter. Only attention must be refined. Peace grows when mental discipline replaces mental indulgence. A quieter mind is not an empty one. It is a focused one. Comparison pulls the mind away from its own path. It measures life through the progress of others and quietly declares deficiency. The Stoics considered comparison one of the fastest ways to lose peace. When you compare, your inner state becomes dependent on circumstances you do not control. Someone else's success feels like your failure. Someone else's pace feels like your delay. But life is not a race with shared lanes. Each person moves under different conditions, with different burdens and timing. Stoicism redirects attention inward, not toward ego, but toward responsibility. Are you acting with integrity? Are you improving your character? Are you responding well to what is given to you? These questions restore balance. When comparison fades, contentment becomes possible. Effort becomes cleaner. Envy loses its voice. Peace returns when you stop measuring your life against standards that were never meant for you. Your path requires presence, not comparison. Loss feels final. It convinces the mind that something essential has been removed. The Stoics approached loss differently. They reminded themselves that nothing external was ever guaranteed. What arrives can depart. What is borrowed must be returned. This perspective does not erase grief. It prevents collapse. When you accept impermanence early, loss becomes painful but not shattering. The mind that expects permanence breaks when change arrives. The mind that understands nature bends and remains intact. Stoicism teaches gratitude without possession, appreciation without attachment. You are allowed to care deeply without demanding permanence. Peace survives loss when identity is not fused with what was lost. You remain whole even when circumstances change, and that wholeness is something the external world cannot remove. When values come from outside, they shift with trends, praise, and fear. The Stoics anchored their lives to internal principles instead. Honesty, discipline, reason, justice. These values do not depend on outcomes. They remain available in every situation. When your behavior aligns with inner values, decision-making simplifies. Regret decreases. Conflict lessens. You no longer ask, "What will this get me?" You ask, "Is this consistent with who I choose to be?" This shift removes inner tension. You stop negotiating with circumstance. Peace grows when your actions no longer contradict your own standards. External chaos loses influence when internal order exists. A life guided by inner values does not promise comfort, but it does provide stability, and stability is the foundation of lasting peace. Many people believe peace comes from control, controlling outcomes, controlling people, controlling the direction of life. The Stoics saw this pursuit as exhausting. Control is limited by nature. The more you demand it, the more frustration you collect. Stoicism does not remove responsibility, it removes illusion. You are responsible for effort, not for how the world responds to it. When control is released, attention returns to what is workable: your attitude, your discipline, your choices. This creates lightness. Instead of forcing life into shape, you cooperate with it intelligently. Peace does not require domination, it requires alignment. The moment you stop trying to command what cannot be commanded, energy returns. Clarity sharpens. You become effective without being tense. This is not weakness, it is efficiency. And efficiency, applied calmly, creates a stable inner world that does not depend on control. Endurance is rarely celebrated. It is quiet, invisible, often misunderstood. The Stoics valued endurance deeply because it does not rely on circumstances. Anyone can remain calm when life is easy. Few can remain steady when it is not. Endurance is the ability to stay present without emotional collapse, to continue acting with reason even when conditions are unfavorable. This does not mean suppressing emotion, it means not being ruled by it. When endurance develops, external pressure loses its leverage. Difficult days pass without leaving permanent damage. Peace grows when you trust your capacity to endure. You stop fearing hardship because you know it cannot destroy your character. The world may test you, but it does not define you. In this trust, the mind relaxes. And a relaxed mind, grounded in endurance, becomes difficult to disturb. The mind becomes restless when it carries too much, too many desires, too many distractions, too many unnecessary concerns. The Stoics practiced simplicity not as deprivation, but as mental hygiene. They understood that excess creates noise, and noise disrupts peace. When life is crowded with wants, the mind is constantly negotiating, protecting, comparing, maintaining. Simplicity removes this burden. Fewer demands mean fewer internal conflicts. Fewer attachments mean fewer fears. This does not require abandoning the world. It requires choosing deliberately what deserves your attention. When attention is simplified, clarity returns naturally. You begin to notice what matters: breathing, movement, the task in front of you. Peace is not something added, it is something revealed. Once unnecessary weight is removed, in simplicity, the mind finds space, and in that space, calm becomes sustainable. Many people feel anxious about time. They feel behind, rushed, pressured by an invisible schedule. The Stoics rejected this anxiety. Time does not owe you progress. It does not promise fairness. It does not adjust to personal expectations. Resisting time creates constant tension. Accepting its nature restores calm. Stoicism teaches patience without passivity. You act when action is possible. You wait without resentment when it is not. This mindset removes urgency fueled by comparison. You stop racing against imaginary deadlines. You stop punishing yourself for not being elsewhere. Peace grows when you allow life to unfold at its own pace, while remaining fully engaged where you are. Time is not an enemy. It is a process. When you stop demanding speed from it, the mind relaxes. Progress becomes steady, effort becomes sustainable, and peace emerges not from rushing forward, but from standing firmly inside the moment you are given. Silence is often uncomfortable because it removes distraction, and without distraction, the mind is forced to face itself. The Stoics valued silence as a form of discipline. Not every thought needs expression. Not every reaction needs release. Constant output weakens attention. When the mind learns to remain silent, it becomes observant. It listens instead of reacting. It responds instead of exploding. Silence creates distance between impulse and action. In that distance, wisdom has room to operate. The external world grows loud. Opinions multiply. Noise competes for attention. A silent mind does not absorb everything it hears. Peace grows when you choose restraint over expression, stillness over commentary. Silence is not absence, it is control. And a controlled mind remains steady. Even in a restless world, the mind craves certainty. It wants guarantees, clear outcomes, permanent answers. The Stoics knew this desire was unrealistic. Life does not offer certainty, it offers probability and change. When peace depends on knowing what will happen, peace is always delayed. Stoicism trains comfort with uncertainty, not blind optimism, but calm readiness. You prepare as well as you can, then you accept what follows. Uncertainty does not mean helplessness. It means flexibility. A mind that can adapt is harder to disturb than a mind that demands prediction. When you stop insisting on knowing the future, the present becomes easier to carry. Peace grows when you no longer require guarantees. To move forward, you act wisely without needing assurance. And in that acceptance of uncertainty, the mind finds freedom. Emotions arrive quickly. They feel urgent, convincing, demanding immediate action. The Stoics never denied emotions. They questioned their authority. An emotion is information, not a command. When reactions go unexamined, they dictate behavior. Regret often follows. Stoicism introduces a pause, a brief space between feeling and response. In that space, reason regains its role. You ask, is this reaction useful? Is it proportional? Will it improve the situation? Most emotional impulses fail this test. By delaying reaction, you prevent temporary feelings from creating permanent consequences. Peace grows when you stop being pulled by every emotional current. You still feel. You simply choose. This choice restores dignity. It restores control. And with practice, the mind becomes calm, not because emotions disappear, but because they no longer dominate. Peace is not a permanent state you unlock once. It is a condition you maintain daily. The Stoics understood this clearly. They treated calm as a discipline, not a reward. Each day brings new impressions, new challenges, new opportunities to lose balance. Without practice, the mind drifts back into old habits, reacting, worrying, clinging. Stoicism is repetition, choosing restraint again and again, choosing clarity again and again. No single insight guarantees peace forever. Only consistent attention does. This is not exhausting. It becomes natural over time. Just as the body adapts to training, the mind adapts to discipline. Peace strengthens through use. When practiced daily, calm becomes resilient. It does not vanish at the first disruption. Instead, it returns more quickly. Peace is not fragile when it is practiced deliberately. Many people build their identity around roles, titles, and achievements. What they do, what they own, how they are perceived. The Stoics warned against this. External identities are fragile. Jobs change. Status fades. Recognition disappears. When identity depends on these things, peace becomes unstable. Stoicism shifts identity inward. You are not what happens to you. You are how you respond to it. Character becomes the center, not appearance, not reputation. When identity rests on values, it survives change. You can lose position without losing dignity. You can face failure without losing self-respect. Peace grows when who you are is no longer negotiated with circumstance. A stable identity creates a stable mind, and a stable mind does not require external validation to remain whole. Chaos outside often reflects disorder within. When the mind lacks structure, even small problems feel overwhelming. The Stoics focused on inner order first. Clear principles, consistent habits, deliberate action. When inner order exists, external chaos loses its ability to destabilize. You respond instead of reacting. You prioritize instead of panicking. You endure instead of collapsing. Order does not mean rigidity. It means alignment. Thoughts align with values. Actions align with reason. Expectations align with reality. Peace grows naturally when the mind knows where it stands. You do not search for calm. You operate from it. A disciplined inner life does not guarantee easy circumstances, but it guarantees stability within them. And that stability is something the external world cannot dismantle. When you look closely, you may realize something unsettling. Everything you once believed you needed for peace was external. Success, security, recognition, control. The Stoics dismantled this belief slowly and carefully. They asked a simple question: if peace can be taken away, was it ever real? Anything dependent on conditions is temporary by nature. True peace does not arrive when life becomes perfect. It appears when the mind stops demanding perfection. This realization changes everything. You still pursue goals. You still care. But your inner state is no longer held hostage by how events unfold. Peace becomes portable. It moves with you. It remains available in success and failure alike. Nothing external was ever required for inner stability. The moment you understand this, life grows lighter. Not because less happens, but because less controls you. When the mind stops chasing peace outside itself, attention returns to what truly matters. Not outcomes, not applause, not certainty, only character. How you think, how you act, how you respond when life does not cooperate. The Stoics did not promise comfort. They promised clarity. They understood that life would always remain uncertain, but the mind did not have to be unstable. When you stop asking the world to protect your peace, you begin protecting it yourself. This does not make life smaller. It makes it lighter. You move through difficulty without being consumed by it. You experience success without being dependent on it. Peace becomes something you carry, not something you chase. And once carried, it no longer disappears when circumstances change. Look at the world around you. It continues without concern for your expectations. And yet, within that indifference, you have a choice. You can demand peace from things, that cannot give it, or you can cultivate a mind that remains steady regardless of what happens. Nothing external can complete you, nothing external can stabilize you, nothing external can grant lasting calm. That work has always belonged to you. Today, do not seek a better world, seek a better response. That is where peace lives.